There's this guy I know who's incredibly shy in person, avoids eye contact, barely speaks in group settings, never contradicts anyone. But online, he's in every comment section, writing paragraphs, tearing apart people's opinions, starting debates, calling out inconsistencies. The contrast is so extreme that if you met both versions, you wouldn't believe they were the same person.
I watched him sit silently through an entire dinner while people discussed politics, nodding along with whatever was said. That same night, he posted a thread absolutely destroying the exact viewpoint everyone at dinner had agreed on. Not a whisper of disagreement in person, but online he became someone else entirely. Bold, confrontational, unshakable in his positions. Then there's this girl whose opinions seem to completely flip every few months, and it's always tied to whoever she's been watching. She spent months passionately arguing that ambition was everything, hustle culture was necessary, rest was for the weak. Then she discovered different influencers and suddenly her entire stance reversed. Now ambition is toxic, hustle culture is trauma, rest is revolutionary. What's wild isn't that her opinion changed. People learn and evolve. It's that both positions were delivered with the exact same intensity, the same moral certainty, the same "I've always believed this" energy. No acknowledgement of the shift, no "I used to think differently." Just complete conviction in whatever the current influence is telling her to believe.
I started seeing this pattern everywhere. People who become walking embodiments of whatever's currently in their algorithm. One month they're defending one side of an issue like it's their core identity. The next month they're on the opposite side with equal passion. The opinions aren't theirs, they're borrowed, absorbed, performed. And honestly, I caught myself doing it too. Repeating takes I'd heard from videos, feeling strongly about things I hadn't actually thought through, switching my stance because someone I admired online switched theirs. My convictions weren't rooted in my own thinking. They were echoes of whoever had the most compelling content that week. And if this is hitting close to home, if you're recognizing these patterns in yourself or people around you, hit subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear this stuff. And honestly, the algorithm rewards it. Plus, we're diving deeper from here, and you won't want to miss where this goes. What's happening here goes deeper than simple influence or changing your mind based on new information. This is about people whose sense of self has become so fluid, so externally defined, that their personality literally reshapes itself around whatever's trending in their digital environment. It's not that they're choosing to adopt new perspectives, it's that the boundary between their identity and the content they consume has dissolved completely. They don't have opinions that get influenced, they have an empty template that gets filled by whatever flows through their feed most powerfully that day. The online warrior isn't finding courage through the screen, he's becoming whoever the algorithm tells him to be when real-world consequences disappear. The opinion flipper isn't learning and evolving, she's shape-shifting into whatever ideology is most present in her current content diet. There's no stable core underneath these transformations, just a personality that's permanently set to absorb and reflect mode. This goes beyond normal social media influence because it involves a complete replacement of self rather than an addition to self. When you genuinely learn something new, it integrates with who you already are. You add nuance to existing beliefs, or you consciously recognize you were wrong and shift with self-awareness. But what we're seeing is different. These transformations happen without integration, without consciousness, without any acknowledgement that a shift occurred. The person who was passionately pro-hustle doesn't say, "I've reconsidered my position." They just start speaking as if they've already been anti-hustle, with the same conviction, the same certainty. It's not growth, it's substitution. The old operating system gets completely uninstalled and a new one takes over, running on the same hardware but with entirely different programming. And here's what makes it so unsettling. They're not aware it's happening. To them, each version feels authentic, feels true, feels like this is who I really am. The lack of continuity doesn't register because there's no stable reference point to notice the discontinuity against. The mechanism behind this is rooted in what happens when someone's internal sense of identity is weak or undefined. When you don't have a solid core of values, beliefs, and self-knowledge that you've built through actual lived experience and deep reflection, your personality becomes like a vessel waiting to be filled. You look outward for cues about who to be because looking inward reveals too much emptiness or uncertainty. Social media becomes particularly dangerous in this state because it offers an endless stream of fully formed identities you can try on. The algorithm learns what resonates with you, not what aligns with your authentic self, but what triggers engagement, emotion, that dopamine hit of feeling certain about something. So it feeds you more and more until you're swimming in a specific ideological ecosystem that feels like truth simply because of its volume and repetition. The shy person becomes an online warrior not because the internet revealed their true bold self, but because the internet removed the immediate social consequences that normally regulate behavior. Without someone's face in front of them, without the risk of real-world confrontation, they can inhabit a borrowed aggression that feels powerful. And they absorb the specific arguments, language, and moral frameworks from whoever dominates their feed, performing debates they've essentially memorized from content creators. The opinion flipper operates on a similar but slightly different mechanism. She's someone who desperately needs to feel certain, to have strong convictions, because uncertainty feels like weakness or confusion. So when she encounters a persuasive influencer with crystal clear positions delivered with confidence, her psyche latches onto that certainty like a life raft. She doesn't adopt the opinion, she absorbs the entire framework, the emotional tone, the moral weight of it. For a while, it genuinely feels like hers. She'll defend it, argue for it, build her identity around it. But because it was never rooted in her own critical thinking or lived experience, it has no deep anchor. The moment she encounters a different influencer with equally compelling delivery arguing the opposite position, the whole structure can collapse and rebuild in the new shape. What looks like hypocrisy or fickleness from the outside feels like genuine belief from the inside. Each time, she's convinced this is finally her real truth. The pattern repeats because the core problem, the absence of self-generated conviction, never gets addressed. She keeps looking for her identity in other people's certainty, instead of building her own through slow, uncomfortable self-examination. There's also a comfort in this kind of personality fluidity that we don't talk about enough. Having a stable, authentic identity requires you to be wrong sometimes, to hold unpopular opinions, to stand apart from the crowd. It requires you to sit with uncertainty, to say, "I don't know," to change your mind slowly and visibly. That's hard. It's vulnerable. It opens you up to criticism, judgment, isolation. But if your personality is just a mirror reflecting trending content, you're never really exposed. You're always on the right side because the right side is whatever's popular in your bubble right now. You get the psychological reward of feeling like you have strong convictions without the risk that comes with actually having them. And if those convictions become unpopular or outdated, you don't have to defend them or examine why you held them. You just let them dissolve and adopt the new trending position. It's identity without commitment, conviction without courage, personality without the vulnerability of being truly known. The online warrior gets to feel powerful without facing real conflict. The opinion flipper gets to feel certain without doing the work of building genuine belief systems. What makes this particularly insidious is how it's mistaken for authenticity. We live in a culture that constantly tells us to be ourselves and live our truth, but it never teaches us how to figure out what that self or truth actually is. So people perform authenticity by fully embodying whatever they currently believe, speaking with passion and conviction, showing up consistently in their current identity. From the outside, it looks real. They're not consciously faking it, they genuinely feel it in the moment. But authenticity isn't about how intensely you feel something, it's about whether that feeling comes from your actual core or from absorbed external influence. The difference is in the roots. Real conviction grows slowly from your experiences, values, critical thinking, the things you've tested against reality. Borrowed conviction is copy-pasted whole from someone else's framework, and it can be overridden just as quickly as it was installed. These people aren't lying when they speak with certainty, they're just certain about things that aren't actually theirs. And because our culture rewards confident expression over careful thoughts, They get validation for each version they perform, which reinforces the pattern instead of challenging it. The role of the algorithm in all this can't be overstated. Social media platforms are designed to show you more of what you engage with, which sounds neutral but has profound psychological effects. If you watch one video about hustle culture and it resonates, the algorithm interprets that as this person wants more hustle culture content and floods your feed with it. Soon, you're not just watching occasional content about ambition, you're immersed in an entire ecosystem of voices all saying variations of the same thing. The repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity creates the feeling of truth. You start to think, everyone knows this, or this is just obvious, because everyone in your feed does know it and treat it as obvious. Your entire information environment becomes an echo chamber that you didn't consciously choose, but that the algorithm constructed around your initial engagement. Then, when the algorithm detects your engagement shifting, maybe you watched one video criticizing hustle culture out of curiosity, it pivots. Now you're in a different echo chamber, and the old one just disappears from your feed. It's like moving to a new country where everyone speaks a different language and holds different values, except you don't realize you've moved, you just think you're learning the truth.
There's a specific vulnerability that social media exploits, the human need for belonging and the fear of being left behind. When you see everyone in your feed talking about something, using certain language, holding specific opinions, there's enormous psychological pressure to align with that. Not because you're weak-willed, but because humans are social creatures who are wired to sync with their group for survival. In physical communities, this instinct is moderated by the diversity of perspectives you encounter. Your family thinks one way, your coworkers another, your neighbors something else. But online, the algorithm can create a monoculture around you where it seems like everyone believes the same thing. Disagreeing with that or staying silent feels like choosing isolation. So you absorb the dominant perspective not through careful consideration, but through social survival instinct. And because this happens subconsciously, you experience it as genuine agreement rather than conformity. The person who becomes a different person on social media isn't making a choice. They're responding to an environment that's been artificially constructed to make one identity feel natural and all others feel foreign.
Let's talk about what gets lost in these constant transformations. Every time someone completely replaces their personality with a trending version, they lose continuity with their own history. The online warrior who's silent in person never develops the real-world skills of actual debate, conflict resolution, or standing up for beliefs when it costs something. He gets the ego reward of feeling like someone who stands for things without building the character that comes from actually doing it. The opinion flipper loses the ability to trust her own judgment because she's never given it time to develop. She's always outsourcing her thinking to influencers, so she never learns how to sit with complexity, hold tension between competing ideas, or build beliefs from the ground up. Both of them lose the experience of being consistently known by others and by themselves. There's no "remember when you believed this" reflection because the old version just gets erased or ignored. And most tragically, they lose the possibility of real growth, which requires you to remember where you started, recognize how you've changed, and understand why. You can't grow if you're just shape-shifting. Growth is integration. This is replacement. The path out of this pattern starts with the deeply uncomfortable work of sitting with uncertainty and resisting the urge to immediately fill it with borrowed content. It means catching yourself when you're about to repeat an opinion you heard online and asking, do I actually believe this, or does it just sound right because I've heard it a lot? It means noticing when your views shift and forcing yourself to examine why. Was it new evidence, lived experience, genuine reconsideration, or was it just exposure to different content? It means developing the humility to say, I don't know, or I'm still thinking about this, instead of performing certainty you don't actually feel. This is hard because it makes you feel less interesting, less confident, less like you have it all figured out. But it's also the only way to start building something real underneath all the borrowed identities. Part of this work involves changing your relationship with social media consumption. You have to start treating content as input to consider rather than truth to absorb.
That means watching videos or reading posts and then stepping away, not immediately engaging, not letting it colonize your thoughts, not reshaping yourself around it. It means exposing yourself to genuinely diverse perspectives, not just the ones the algorithm thinks you want, so you can see that smart, thoughtful people disagree about almost everything. This breaks the illusion that there's one obvious correct position you need to align with. It also means spending real time offline, in physical reality, with people who know you across time and can reflect back. That doesn't sound like you, or wasn't your position different last month? Those reality checks are crucial because they interrupt the pattern of frictionless transformation that social media enables. There's also the deeper psychological work of building an actual self to anchor to. This isn't some mystical journey, it's practical. It means identifying your actual values by looking at what you do, not what you post about. What do you choose when no one's watching? What are you drawn to when there's no trend to follow? What beliefs have you held across different social contexts, different friend groups, different phases of life? Those are hints of your actual core. It means spending time in self-reflection that isn't performed for an audience, journaling that you don't post, thoughts you don't share, questions you sit with privately. It means having experiences in the physical world that shape you, traveling alone, learning a skill slowly, helping someone without documenting it, failing at something offline. These experiences build a self that exists independently of your social media presence, which makes you less susceptible to having that presence overwrite your identity. For the online warrior specifically, the challenge is learning to speak up in person or accepting that you're actually conflict avoidant, and that's okay, but then not performing false bravado online. You can't build real courage through a screen. You have to practice small moments of actual disagreement in physical spaces, politely offering a different view in a conversation, saying, "I don't agree with that" when it feels uncomfortable, sitting with someone's disapproval without immediately backtracking. Each of these moments builds genuine confidence that's rooted in reality, not borrowed from the anonymous safety of comment sections. And if you discover you're truly not someone who enjoys debate and confrontation, that's valuable self-knowledge. But then you have to stop performing that identity online, because the gap between who you are in person and who you pretend to be digitally will eventually hollow you out. For the opinion flipper, the work is learning to hold your positions more lightly while simultaneously taking the process of forming them more seriously. This sounds contradictory, but it's not. You hold them lightly in the sense that you stay open to new information, to being wrong, to evolving. But you take the process seriously by actually doing the thinking work yourself, reading multiple perspectives, examining your own biases, testing ideas against your lived experience, sitting with uncomfortable cognitive dissonance instead of immediately resolving it by adopting whichever position feels most certain. This is slow. It's uncomfortable. It means having half-formed opinions for a while, being genuinely unsure, not having a strong take to contribute to every conversation. But it's the only way to develop positions that are actually yours, that come from your own synthesis rather than absorption, that will bend under pressure but not completely collapse and reverse. We also need to talk about the role of community in all this. These patterns thrive in isolation. When your primary social connection is through screens, when the people around you are curated by algorithms, when you don't have real relationships that require consistency across time. The antidote is building offline community, where people know you beyond your feed, where your identity is reinforced through repeated interactions, shared experiences, and honest feedback. This doesn't mean abandoning online spaces, but it means not letting them be your primary social ecosystem. It means having friends who will call you out when you suddenly start talking differently, who remember what you said last month, who know you well enough to distinguish between genuine growth and reactive shape-shifting. These relationships create accountability and continuity that make it harder to completely reinvent yourself every time your feed changes. There's something important to understand about why this matters beyond just personal authenticity. When large numbers of people are operating as mirrors of trending content rather than individuals with stable beliefs, it creates a culture that's incredibly volatile and easy to manipulate. Ideas spread not because they're true or well-reasoned, but because they're packaged compellingly and amplified algorithmically. Public discourse becomes a series of trending positions that sweep through populations and then disappear, with no one really grappling with the complexity underneath. We lose the ability to have actual dialogue because people aren't defending positions they've deeply considered, they're repeating scripts they've absorbed. And the people who benefit from this are the platforms and the influencers who figured out how to hack the system, how to create content that overrides people's critical thinking and gets absorbed directly into identity. This isn't about judging individuals, it's about recognizing a systemic problem that we're all vulnerable to and that has real consequences for how we think, connect, and make collective decisions. The truth is, developing a real self is harder than it's ever been. Previous generations had more stable social context, slower information flow, and clearer templates for who to become. We're navigating an environment where identity is both more important, we're told to express ourselves constantly, and more unstable, because we're exposed to infinite versions of who we could be. The people who become different people on social media aren't weak or stupid, they're responding normally to an abnormal environment. But normal doesn't mean healthy, and responsive doesn't mean inevitable. We have more agency than we think. We can choose to slow down, to be boring, to not have takes on everything, to sit with uncertainty, to build ourselves from the inside out rather than the outside in. It just requires us to swim against the current of a system that profits from our malleability. What I've come to understand is that having a self, a real, consistent, hard-to-manipulate core, is an act of resistance now. It's choosing not to optimize for engagement, not to shapeshift for belonging, not to absorb every compelling framework that crosses your feed. It's the radical act of saying, I don't know yet, or that's not for me, or I used to think that, but I've changed my mind and here's why. It's accepting that you'll be less interesting to some people, less perfectly aligned with trending positions, less likely to go viral with your perfectly calibrated takes. But in exchange, you get to be real, you get to know yourself, you get to build beliefs that are actually load-bearing, that will support you when trends shift and algorithms change and the crowd moves on to the next thing. You get to be the same person on and offline, not because you're performing consistency, but because there's actually a consistent person underneath all the noise. So maybe the question isn't why do people become different people on social media, it's what would it take to stay the same person everywhere? What would it require to build something solid enough that it doesn't reshape itself every time the algorithm pivots? And maybe the answer is simpler than we think. Turn down the volume of external voices, turn up the volume of your own. Spend less time consuming other people's certainty and more time building your own uncertainty into something real. Let yourself be unfinished, unoptimized, unsure. Let yourself change slowly, visibly, with awareness. Let yourself be known across time instead of replaced in real time. The path to having a self isn't about finding the right content to absorb. It's about stopping the absorption long enough to see what's actually there underneath. And that might be the most uncomfortable, most necessary thing any of us can do right now.